Wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11.
Well, hello and welcome back. It is the middle of April 2018, and it's time to pick not one but two new projects. And the two projects I picked out, once I realized, I looked at them and said, there's not a figure in this, and I usually do a ship and a figure, or a vehicle and a figure. And I didn't do that this week. I'm doing two vehicles, and I'm trying to kill two birds with one stone. I have been wanting to do an automobile and a real space subject for a while, and have been busy with flights of fancy instead. So I picked into my stash and I pulled out this one, the AMTronic. Now you say that's not a car, and I say screw you, it's got tires, it's a car. See? It's a car. It's a concept car. A lot of people take this kit and they make a Starfleet shuttle out of it, which I could really see because it's shuttle shaped. But I'm going to be making a car out of it, so we'll see how much fun that turns out to be. And if I don't like it, then I'll just tear it all down and make a starship out of it. But car. And the second is the real space. And the real space kit is so big, so huge, so massively grand that I can barely lift the box. It is 1/72 Saturn V. Now look how big this box is. This is the single biggest model box I have. Fortunately though, when the model is built, it will stand 5 feet tall when it's done. But it's only about this big around, so it'll stand in a corner really easily. It won't even take up that much space when it's done. I don't know whether I'm going to stand it up in a corner or whether I'm going to display it on its side up on a rack on the wall. I think I might have a good space for it. If it works out, I might put it above those three posters in the room. But it's not, like I say, the box is big and impressive. Well, let's just get to them. First, the AMTronic. And see, interior and wheels. So yes, it's going to be a vehicle. One thing I noticed about this that I was happy when I saw it was, I thought the only glass that was coming in it was this going to be this green stuff, which I don't care for. But then I saw you also get a set of that in clear, so happy days on that. I'm going to be using the clear windows. But as it is a car model, and I am not that conversant in car models, I'll be taking my sweet time. Those look like they could be engine parts. So I've been pulling parts off and cleaning them up and getting them ready for construction, and just basically poring over these hip, modern, groovy instructions that's done up as one big sheet with that wonderfully futuristic font. And I love the press from this. Visitors from the 21st century. Yeah, I had visitors from the 21st century come today. I had a visitor stop by. No big deal anymore. And then we turn our attention to this Saturn V. Well, Apollo 11, Saturn V. Now, the folks have said that there are some, all the rivets aren't in the right spot. There are some slight errors in this. I'm not going to get that fussy with it. I'm going to take the kit as it is, build it to the best of my ability. And the nice thing about this is I could build it in stages. No, all puns intended. Because the stages are meant to separate. I can build them in stages and take up as much or as little room with it as I need to. Now the box is big and impressive and full of cardboard, but when you open it up you realize, like a bag of potato chips, how much empty space is actually in there. And a lot of these pieces here are like the parts of the first stage rocket. You take those out and build them up, and they're very impressive, but it's a lot of plastic, but it's a lot of empty space in it too. This is the cowling for the 5 main engines, so you can get an idea. I mean, it's very impressively designed, but you can get an idea for about the size, the sheer size, the magnitude, the bigness of it. And I'm seeing lots of decals for the red lettering and the flags, but I am not seeing any of the black shapes, so those must be need to be painted on, which luckily for me I've got a way to do that. So we'll have fun. We'll just, like I said, we'll take this in stages, and we will. I think it's going to be easier if I, rather than getting all the parts out, if I get the parts out needed for each particular stage and build them that way, and then put that completed stage off to the side. Oh, it looks like we have a clear command module there. I won't be using that. I'll be using the regular, this regular module, but I wonder, without looking through the instructions, why they included a clear set, but we'll find out. This part, here we got Lunar Module, stuff I'm familiar with there, and command module, and then the big engines. And what I like about these engines is that they are single pieces. They are not one of those deals where you have to glue two halves together and then take care of that annoying seam. As we get into that, we'll discuss and discover all the wonders of that, but it looks like it's going to be a lot easier to clean up than it would be if it was your traditional. Well, there's your bottom lunar module with the foil. Okay, and again, another clear spot. I guess so. If you want to show what the where the lunar module sits underneath the command module, you can use this clear display bit. So yeah, it looks like there's going to be some fun features on this. So I guess nothing left to it but to do it. Good morning, everybody. It's Tuesday and we are starting work. I have been cleaning parts yesterday. Yes, that's just, I guess that's stage 1 and stage 2 of the rocket. But I'm starting to put together just to get my arms around how big a beast this is going to be. And it makes me certainly glad that I picked up this big can of methyl ethyl ketone, because I think it's going to take that much glue to put that much rocket together. So I think I may console myself working on the car a little bit this morning. Dealing with small parts might be easier, but I'm thinking also I could set up some big parts to dry while I'm working on. I don't know what I'm doing yet, let's just be honest. So let me clean up these parts because they came out nasty. I mean, one thing I'll say about the Dragon kit is got some heavy sprue action going on here, because we got big things like that need to be cleaned off. And a lot of the holes in the side here for the parts that attach are not drilled all the way through on some of the pieces, so I have to knock those out from the inside. But that's a big one. It's a big one. I think I might start on something a little easier to handle. Okay, I've been playing around with these big parts for the better part of an hour now, and I have to walk away. I can't, you may check the record on this, but I don't think I've ever been as actively angry at a model company as I am right now at this kit. Just some stupid mistakes and things that just piss poor planning is what it is. They're very proud of announcing that these are all slip casts, and yeah, you get this big piece, you get this big cylinder in 2 pieces. Now, okay, I get that. And but they don't tell you that you have to bore out all of those holes for, I mean, I've been looking and I've had to cross-check against different parts of the box and the instructions and look down the line at later steps to see how the first step should have been accomplished. But the fact that the B1s and the B2s aren't even identified in the box. They're loose, so you have to figure out which ones are the B1s and the B2s. Okay, I get that. You have a point where, and this is what bugs me the most about this damn kit, is you have these long pieces that span several stages or several cylinders on the stage, which is nice. I like that. And here you have the holes poked through, the ones that are on the seam that you can see that you line up your part with. But none of these blessed rings, and there are a plenty of them, none of the ribbed parts have the holes indicated. They're not indicated on the outside. They're not indicated on the inside. So how am I supposed to figure out, if you're looking at this as a clock, look at this as a clock where that's noon, that's 3, that's 6, that's 9. How do I know? And this is for parts that don't span. This is for parts like these little guys here. How do I know that this goes at 12, or does it go here, or does it go here, or does it go here? I don't know. And they give you, there are pins on the back. There are supposed to be sets of little, sets of holes that come in twos that are supposed to be bored through there, or even if they were just slightly lighter plastic where I could see the hole where the hole's supposed to be. They did that on this piece where you see where the holes are supposed to be and you can drill through accordingly. But for the parts that are supposed to be completely on the rings, there's no guidance. So you can only put the other pieces and then see where these pieces go in relation to those pieces, which is a poor way to plan a model. And then you get lovely, clear as glass illustrations like this that basically all have arrows and say, okay, well, they all go on the cylinder. What am I supposed to count the rings between each one to figure out how many they're, where it's supposed to go? All it would have taken for them to make this clear, dear Dragon Company, would be to draw a circle here, like a clock face, and say, okay, one goes here, one goes here, one goes here, one goes there. If you're not going to give me the holes that I'm supposed to have to join them with, you got to help me out somehow. You're killing me, Smalls. You're killing me. So yeah, I'm gonna. Here you go. There's the two parts. I have the impression they go side by side, but I don't know whether they go on either side of this seam. This long piece wants to go on that seam, or does the little piece go on that seam? They're pointing it to be in the same place. It's driving me nuts. So I'm gonna walk away from this and work on the car kit. It's at least a little bit more clear to understand. Okay, hoping for a little bit more sanity, I'm working on the AMTronic kit now, and the first thing I want to do is I want to strip the chrome off of all these pieces because they're not gluing together well with the 10X or the MEK, and it's the chrome plating that's also giving me heartaches because the chrome is so heavy on this, or the plating is so heavy on this, I can't read the stupid little numbers. So, and all of the parts are much smaller in real life than they look in the instructions, which are not doing my eyes any good. So what I'm going to do is get a little, and maybe we'll have a mini tutorial on that. I'm going to get a little bowl of the purple stuff and see how easily it is going to be to get some of the chrome off of it. Okay, I've got this little bowl of super clean out here, and this is another thing that I know this is a repop of a very old kit. And you could tell the difference in the way models are designed these days or engineered. There's some of these, on these trees, there's absolutely no room between the part and the stub, and you're forced to bend it back. You can't even get a pair of nippers in there between there to cut them out. So I'm simply dropping that in. Going to shake it all about. See how long it needs to last. I'm not going to try to time this, but I'm going to let it soak for a while and see what it does. In case you're wondering, I have the rubber glove on this hand. And to answer the magic question, it was a matter of seconds. All I did was drop the piece in there, shake it around a bit, pull it out, and take a toothbrush to it to kind of get in the nooks and crannies. And it is clean as the proverbial whistle. So now what I want to do is put this in some just a dish of regular soapy water to clean all the agents off of it, and then we'll be ready to rinse it and go back to work. Okay, this is going very well. I just these are the little parts I had already taken off the trees that I had started working with before I realized that the chrome was not going to be great. And I've got them in this warm water here to rinse off. But yeah, it pulled that chrome right off of there slicker than anything. So all I got to do now is put them in the final rinse and let them dry. But I'm going to do the rims and everything else. I just cut the trees down smaller to fit in here, but it doesn't take but a second of I don't try to keep my bare hand out of it, but just a second of agitation and it's ready to go. So next thing you know, all these will be stripped. It's really something how much detail is being revealed after you take these take the chrome off of them. This on the obviously on the right is the still chromed piece, but the left is the cleaned piece underneath, and it's a darker green plastic than the rest of the kit, which is kind of neat. But I think I'm going to be much happier with dechroming these and then painting them with metallics than I would be if they had been left chrome. It's nice to see something going right. Well, this was fun. Something I'd heard about doing in the past, but never had the cause to do it myself, was stripping chrome, and it went very quickly, very easily, very painlessly, which is how I like my modeling, in case you weren't aware of that. And look, even down into all of the recesses with no amount of having to go in there with tools and sanding and pick at it. It's stripped down naked as the day it was injected, which I suppose is all any of us can hope for. But yeah, these came out, look at, even down into all the detail on the rims, clean as a whistle. So yes, I'm going to let these dry, and then we will get back on the wagon as far as getting this guy built. I'll be pulled back out, getting this guy built. But here's your model lesson for today. Well, it is Wednesday, and I am back, hopefully with a better attitude today than yesterday, working on both the AMTronic car and the Saturn V rocket. And the AMTronic is, I'm dangerously running out of things I can put together before I can start painting, because a lot of stuff gets covered up in the construction process, and if I don't paint it now, I won't be able to get a brush to it afterwards. And it's made up of a multitude of tiny parts, all of which do not want to go together as easily as I would like. And I was looking at it and I realized there's probably more plastic in these two pieces of the stage of the rocket than all of this kit combined. So a little bit of perspective is probably in order. A lot of this car is going to have to be painted by hand as opposed by airbrush, because there's just not a lot of space there to get in behind things, like little bits on this engine and such. So I'm going to have to get the hand paints out and see how well those work. And I am missing a part. I have been searching and researching for this particular part that has gone missing, because and what's screwing me up is that the parts look so much bigger in the instructions than they do in real life, and the numbers are not easy to find, and even at that I am not finding the number on the sprue even. So we're going to have to do a little bit of searching, and I might have to scour the trash to see if I accidentally threw it away. So wish me luck, because it's kind of an important part. Okay, we're back at work on the AMTronic, and I've got some paint on, some bits, but mostly undersides of things I won't be able to get to. I started working on the interiors, just laying in some colors to see if I like them or not. Things like getting the bottom side of that painted so that I could get it in place. This thing is nothing but a hinge mobile. Everything on it is hinged. The landing gear flaps are hinged. The doors are hinged. The engine compartment trunk lid is hinged. And it is all done with the same technology. It's basically one piece with a groove in it trapping another piece. here's your example. See the little groovy pieces here, and not to say that they are groovy pieces, but there are pieces with grooves in them. And you put another piece over it and trap it. So making sure those are cleaned out and filed and easily moving is job one. Job two is making sure you don't trap when you put your glue down, that you don't get any in the hinge itself. So extra care is required there. No, the missing part has not resurfaced. If I need to, I will sculpt a new one or scratch build a new one, but it is the control yoke, so kind of a big deal. It is the bit that comes down and has the front screen and the two handles go on it. So if it doesn't find its way back home, it's not too impossible to scratch build something, but I'd rather not. Okay, it's about mid-afternoon on Wednesday, and I am going to clean up what I have gotten done here on the AMTronic and get back to work on the blessed rocket. So I want to show where I've gotten so far. I've gotten this much of the front done. I've got the front gear installed. I'm starting to work on the shell, kind of working from the front to the back, trying to figure out what pieces need to go in what order. It looks like the seats need to go in next before I can put the engine in place. So that, and also I need to be working on the masks for the canopy, since only these parts here remain clear. The rest of it gets painted. So that's something simple. And the nice thing about this kit, having two sets of clear parts, is I can use one set to do all my measuring on and scuffing up and worrying about scratching, and then have the clear set clean and be able to use in real life, as opposed to having to worry about messing up the final part. So that goes on something like this, and then everything slaps back into the back part, and I've got to make sure I don't lose these little rivet things that go in the wheels. So let's neaten this up, and maybe I'll find that part somewhere. Doubt it, but maybe I will. Welcome back to the Saturn V project, or as I am calling it, the 6 stages of grief. Yeah, I'm starting to work down to the smaller parts because these actually make more sense, and the instructions are less ambiguous about them, and I can kind of wrap my head around it. It's when you have all of these that are the same size, and you're trying to figure out by relative height, because you're really not getting a lot of help with the instructions. This section, then a plane, and then a ribbed section, the first wide plane section, narrow, wider, narrow, and then another plane section, and then that works down to here. So there's still a big, huge problem with this kit, and that is these ribbed sections that do not have, not only do they not have holes drilled in them, but they have no indication as to where the holes even need to go. Actually, I'd have felt better if they'd have taken all these pieces that go on the rib sections and just, and I may do this, just knock those posts off of there and then tell me where it needs to go by putting a little indent, where I'm sorry, I can't even get it on screen, like the profile of the ribs. If they had just put the profile of the ribs in there, then you could just push it up against the ribs and be done. But this is not user-friendly. This is not going to be an easy thing to build. I did go ahead and put 2 holes in it, and I am as brave as I can be to figure out that this goes in those 2 holes. And I drop it. Come on. This detail bit, good, but of course it's not going to stay. Anyway, this frickin' piece here goes in those frickin' holes right there. This and the only thing I can do is try to figure out where the landmarks are as far as the pieces that go down the side, the big ribs, and then just base everything off of the relative closeness or distance from that. Let me show you another problem that I am exacerbated about. Here are, this is section B2. Oh, come on. The fact that everything's just jumping out of my hand because it's too big and any of that. Anyway, this is the two sections of B2. This does not have any of the holes drilled in it than it should. And let me open up this to show you my problem. Okay. Now, the further you get away from straight up and down, the more distorted these holes get. And so my guess is, do I drill into the center of those distortions? Or what do I do with these two pieces that are so close side by side? Because I think they're probably even too close for two detail pieces to go next to each other. So which one of those do I choose? You can kind of see what's going on there. If you hold it up to the light, you can see what the holes look like. Do I put two detail pieces real close to each other right there, or what? So I may end up putting too many holes in this thing and have to fill them back in, but that's their fault for not making it very clear. Well, good afternoon. I am back working on the Saturn V. And when I am stuck, I do what all good nerds do. I consult the internet. And I checked out a couple other people's builds of this kit. And they seem to be obsessed with how large it is. I don't care how large a ship is. I don't care how impressive the stack is if it's not easy to build or not. I don't even ask it to be easy to build, but I ask the instructions to be clear, and we all seem to agree that the instructions suck. But unless I feel like I'm getting nowhere and I haven't just plunged in and start working on this kit, I am happy with where I think these are the particular stages. So I am going to start lining up and marking out holes and starting to cut, because there's really nothing else to do at this point. I have to just jump in and say, okay, this is going to be point A, and everything is going to orient off of point A, because you got to start somewhere. Okay, well, Dragon, I've done your job for you. You're welcome. I had to sneeze is what I had to do. Taking this one hole that we know, I had to map out the other two holes, and luckily this channel is wide enough that I could make those a little wide to give some wiggle room, because, you know, I'm not a model kit engineer, but I feel like I'm going to get an honorary degree by the time I'm done here. So I've got these two beasts running up the sides of the first stage. And these two parts are actually part of the second stage, I believe. Now I'll know this stuff before we're done. No, these two pieces are part of the second stage. But having mapped those out, I feel a little bit more confident about going in and doing the rest of them and drilling out the holes for the other bits. So I am so glad to get these two pieces here and these two pieces here actually glued together. So I'm happy to get some stuff actually started to get glued. Okay, things are actually starting to progress. I'm going to glue all of stage one together outside of the plate that has all of the engines on the bottom. I could care less about what's happening on the inside, so I am not going to paint the top of that. I am not. I'm going to get all the way up here till the end of stage one, and then that's where I'm going to make my breaks. So here is going to be as much as I am going to put together. Then I'm going to put these guys on the sides, and then I will make stage two available to come off and work at it from there. But I'm not really interested until we get up to the lunar module and the command module as far as making the inside, making the inside something you could see, like painting that tank or anything. Not till we get to this point am I worried about that. So I can go ahead and glue this together, get it done and out of the way. Good morning, it's Thursday, and what we're doing today is getting back to work on the AMTronic. I've got body parts outside already being primed and drying, and now I'm going to work on some of the metallic parts. I'm going to base coat them with a gunmetal and do a little bit of highlighting with the Vallejo aluminum that I like so much. So I've got everything kind of propped up on toothpicks and ready to go, and let's get to it. Okay, I've just been playing around painting up the interior, and if it looks familiar to you, it ought to. I mean, honestly, don't give me an interior that looks like the bridge of Picard's Enterprise and not expect me not to paint it that way. I wonder if I think it was Herman Zimmerman, the production designer of the Next Generation, I wonder if he ever built this model as a child, because these look very familiar to anybody who's seen the first season of Next Gen. So that's how I painted it. Knowing that those colors went together well on television, I figured they will go well together in this model. Now I'm going to repaint this lightest beige. I've just masked in the colors first, and then I'm going back and refining them. And I'm putting some silver on the unchromed pieces to kind of re-silver them up, and having a little bit of fun with air. If you ever want to know how well these parts here are designed, just hit them with a little bit of air, and they pick up quite a bit of speed in it. These things are pretty well balanced. They're just hitting on the top of a toothpick, but they take forever to run down. That's how. There you go. How well done they are. So while the body is outside drying, I'm doing a little bit of dry brushing and painting on the engine parts to get them ready to go in, and the tires. And I think I'm going to hit these guys with a coat of clear before I try manhandling the rubber tires onto those, because I think it might scratch that up. And I want to put a good flat coat on here so that I can go back in and pick out that beige color and then paint in the side instrument panels and things like that. So it's coming along pretty quickly. No, I never did find that missing piece. I don't know where it is. If it's not here, it can only be one other place, and that is the local hobby shop that I went to Saturday with my buddies to have a build day, and I did some cleanup of parts there, and that's the only other place where I've had this box open. So if it ain't here, it's there, or it was never in the pack. So since this is a completely concept-driven design, I can do my own control panel, and no one will know the difference. And in here, you can see the first stage stack of the first stage of the Saturn V. That's what I got done yesterday. I've taken all the tape off of it and did a little bit of sanding on it. But these parts, I think, are coming along pretty well. I did put that tank top in there because that support is needed for the pole that goes through the middle engine and up through to support it. So had to put that part in even if I wasn't planning on painting it. But now we're getting to the parts that I am planning on painting, so I wanted to get a primer coat on those, because if you plan to paint, you need to prime. Okay, I got a wonderful bit of package in the mail. It's always good when mail call comes, and these were things I sent for once I knew that I was going to be working on the big rocket. And this is a set of decals that are available through Cult TV Man, specifically made for the 72nd scale Saturn V, that are a wee bit more accurate than the ones that come with the Dragon kit. And they have a wonderful pedigree here. Designed by Rick Sternbach. Now, Sternbach, if you know that name, he's a pretty big heavy hitter. So I'm going to take his word on these designs a lot more than the fine people at at Dragon, who are definitely dragging their feet when it comes to their instructions. So look at all of those. And there's a sheet, there's two sheets here for the rocket itself, and then there are two more sheets, that goes in this package, two more sheets, one for the command module and one for the lunar module. No, I'm sorry, the command module and the lunar module are both on this sheet. It is that there are two little sets of instructions, that's what it is. But they split here. And the nice thing is you get a decal of NASA, and you get this wonderful Cult TV Man decal if you want to put that on your custom ride somewhere. But what I was kind of hoping I would also get out of this, and it looks like I did, is a lot better reference material so I could figure out where, you know, some of those attachments go. And the way these are spelled out, it's really going to be helpful, I believe, as far as showing me where, not only where the black and white markings go, but where some of the attachments to the, like this, like the side of the rocket itself, so I can wrap that around and map out where my holes need to be and things like that. So a lot more hopeful today than I was yesterday on this rocket. Well, I feel better. Since you last saw me, I had a bit of lunch, did an hour or so worth of yard work, and took a shower. So I'm back to doing one last bit of work on the car for today, and then we slide over into rocket territory. And today's trivia question is, what does this car have in common with the People's Republic of China? They are both about to get a beiging. Yes, it's time to do the beige. I painted on some by hand, but now I need to spray in some other bits around the roof and stuff of the cockpit to get a good beiging in there. So let's mix up some paint and do that. Okay, back on the rocket now, back on the Saturn V. And last thing to do on this stage one, to get it to this preliminary stage, I'm going to be using the word stage a lot, so get used to that. Let's go ahead and glue these two pieces together. Like I said, I've got that inside, but that's just a spacer. I guess everything in the ship is a spacer because that's where it's going. I'm sorry, I'm punchy. It's afternoon, I'm punchy. But that's, I can finish up the main large parts of stage one if I get that to there, and then I can do a little bit of sanding and maybe put a coat of white primer on it. Well, the good news is I got all of these guys drilled out and put in place, and I used these instructions as guides, so I have those to blame if they are wrong. And I only made one set of mistakes, and that was putting in these three holes because I thought there was one of these on both sides like there were on the first stage, and no, there was only one of these on the second stage. So I don't know why they gave you two. I saw two, I was compelled to put two on. I was wrong. So apparently they've done the old trick of multiple trees and not they cheaped out by doing multiple trees, and therefore gave you too many parts, which normally you don't complain about, but I'm going to, because I was duped. No, I wasn't careful when I read the instructions. And also the fact that these two B parts are identical means you have to drill out separate different sets of holes for each piece, and that's why they didn't drill them all the way through, because they were different depending on the front and the back. So rather than give you two separate pieces, they gave you two identical pieces with both sets of holes in them, and you only use one set per each. But it would have been nice, and here's something that they really could have done. If you're out there listening, Dragon, it would have been nice if you had marked on the inside, since it wouldn't have cost you anything else, anything more in plastic or just a little bit more time in your design work. If you had marked holes top and bottom, say, oh, the ones on the one side get a little check mark on the top, and the ones on the other side get a little check mark on the bottom, and then you would know to drill out those holes for the one side and those holes on the other side, and not both of them. and that would save me. So now I have to find a way to fill those in with a little bit of putty or something, but it's painful, but it's done. You know, this kit is just chock full of pieces that will never see the light of day. Since I since I am building this in stages to be removed in stages, this is the complete second stage, and this piece, which goes right about in there, will never see the light of day. So as neat of a piece as that is, I'm going to save it and use it to scratch build something else. That looks like a perfect Clavius moon base dome, or really huge nacelle for an Enterprise or something like that. That's just a neat kit. It's never gonna go in this rocket, so into the scratch pile it goes. This piece is gonna go right in about there because you will see it when looking down the barrel here. So I'm gonna put that in place, and this piece, which let me turn this up. This, which has all this neat detail, a lot of that will not be seen because it gets covered with this plate. So this whole works goes in and sinks down to about there, where you'll see some of the details, and then you'll see the little engine cones. But I do need to chop these guys off level and sand them so that you don't see them. Plus I also need to paint over all of my idiot marks on the inside. So I think the next thing to do would be to open this thing back up, hit the inside with some primer gray, and get ready to glue all this together. Okay, just doing a little bit of colorful painting here, just something to break up all of the gray. This will be the head that goes right about there, and this actually is going on the next stage. It goes in that somewhat. So figured while I had the same color out, I'd go ahead and knock both of those out. This was done on a white background, and that was done on gray, and that's the only difference. It's the same paint color. So that makes a difference what color of primer you use, ladies and gents. I kind of like that difference. It actually throws a little bit of green into it, but I'm thinking the next thing I need to do is to go ahead and get outside of take this top piece off and go ahead and glue up the rest of this, get it ready to go, and let it be drying overnight. I've got the inside of that painted. I can go ahead and glue these guys back on if I want to. That way I know where they are and they're all in their proper happy place. It's getting into early evening though, so I have to decide how much more I'm going to do tonight and what I'm going to carry over till tomorrow. Good morning and welcome back. It's Friday and look at this mess. I have got to do some cleaning here, but I am continuing to work on the interior of the AMTronic, and I'm working on these nice wood accent panels, a la the big horseshoe on the Enterprise D bridge. I'm going to make this nice strip through the center, a nice wood, like you also see in your higher end luxury vehicles. You see little wood accents. So I'm going to make some wood accents there. And I've got the basic brown on now, and I'm just trying to determine the best way of, trying to draw in some wood grain. So give me a minute or two to figure that out, and we'll get right back to you. Okay, I've got the wood grain painted in, and it's time to give this guy a satin coat, maybe a flat coat to dull the colors down, and then I'll go back in with the clear gloss on the wood so that it looks like it's been nice and shined. So let me do flat on the interiors of the cabin, and then we will clean that up and try to kind of get it aside so that I can work on this rocket some more. Okay, well, I've discovered some more holes I need to cover up. I thought I'm on stage 3 here, and all of those holes that I've cut out, I've got to cover up. So there only has 2 of these verticals, and they are right next to each other. There are no other verticals on the top, and that is, I need to get the Lazy Susan out here. Those are those 2. So that means I've got to cover up the other ones. Luckily, I figured out a pretty good way of doing that. Since those holes are perfectly well rounded, all I do is fill them with a bit of sprue and glue that in there, and then hack it off, cut it flush, and then sand it. But that's work I wasn't expecting to have to do after I made that seam so nice and clean. Now I've got to fill in those holes, but I'm trying to map out where on this piece, actually it's not on this piece, it's on this ridge right here, where I have to drill to put the additional details. So I'm going by having some of these verticals in place and then mapping around to them. So let's figure out how to fix my mess. Well, we've gotten to this stage. Yes, I'm using the stage pun again. It's gonna happen, folks. Get used to it. I am to the stage where I can glue these guys together. This is going to be a natural break where we can remove the second stage from the first stage. Or is that third stage from the second stage? Let me check. Yes, that is the third stage. So I'm going to be able to remove this third stage at this point. So I can glue all of those bits together. I can glue all of these guys together because this is the completed second stage. And then it'll be ready to go. I need to see what needs painted on the inside. I know that sounds kind of weird, but for example, when I take this off, and it may be taped on, yeah, this guy here is going to be visible, so I need to paint the inside of the rocket around where that is going to go, So I can glue these guys on, get those all taken care of. These ones have been glued on, but this ring and this ring have not been glued to that. So let me take care of some of this stuff. I did take the first stage and start putting some white sandable primer on that outside. I can't do it all at once. I have to do it in stages. Yes, it's a drinking game. Take a shot every time Lou says stage. But because it is just so much square feet of plastic, you can't plaster it all on there at once. You just have to build it up in multiple levels of paint. And really what you need is a Wagner power roller, I think, to get it all on there. You also need a less windy day than it is outside today to get any sort of coverage. So let's get some of the, whoa, it's knocking her over. Let's get some of these details glued down. We're getting ready to close up the rocket, or the Saturn V, for the week and get one last bout of work on the AMTronic in. And here we have stage 3 with the nice little dome of the tank painted, and the nozzle of course is not painted, but you see the underside of that. We're starting to work on that, and that leads us to stage 4, which is the Lunar Module adapter. And here's another fine example of the Dragon Company, not their right hand not knowing what their left hand is doing, because if you look at the box you will see this. Hold on one second. Okay, very clearly on the side of the box it says, actual Lunar Module adapter is not transparent. I don't know whether they're talking about on the actual Saturn V rocket or on the actual model, because it sure looks transparent to me. And this is exactly how I plan to paint mine. I'm going to do a little bit of a cutaway where the one side of it is going to be painted, and then you're going to turn it around and see the other side so that you can actually see the Lunar Module. I get the feeling, and this is probably more accurate than anything else, is that this much of the rocket was previously released as another model, and then they decided to go ahead and do the rest of the rocket. And when they did that, they just used the parts from the kit they had before. And maybe it was transparent on that, but it's transparent on this too. So the only thing I'm noticing is that there seems to be a, come on, focus. There seems to be a solid base on that, whereas in this case it is simply a ring. So we're going to have to see whether I need to do something about that to make that work or not. But yeah, it now see there, it's painted in, but there I can believe that's probably just turned around, and on the other side it is clear, because this is mighty clear plastic. I mean, it's clearer than most styrene that you see. It's very well done in that respect. So maybe we end up putting a flat floor in there so that, let me lift this off. So here is your third stage, and maybe the fourth stage we put a floor in this so that we can see it correctly. But that's where we're going to be down to on next week. We're going to be doing, you know, we're being thruster city, because we got all kinds of thruster nozzles in here to work on, and oh, excuse me, all kinds of thrusters, and then we have the command module and the Lunar Module to deal with. So that's where a lot of the detail work is going to come in. When I say we've got, you know, the rocket, the exterior done, that's maybe half of the battle, maybe a third of the battle, and but it's the big showy part. Sort of like building a house. When they throw up the frame, you think the house is going to go really quickly, and then it's all those months of doing the interior that slows the project down. Okay, I wanted to bring the Saturn V outside because it's about the only way I can get the whole bloody thing into a picture. I got to do this almost, which is making most of you nauseous right now. I'm sorry. But from the solo cup on the top, the plastic, all the way down, and you can see where I started putting the white on the first stage, and this is the second stage, and the third and fourth. So you can see what kind of space this thing takes up. But like I've said before, tall, very, very tall, but doesn't take up a lot of floor space, so it'll fit in the corner of a room pretty nicely. So I think this is where it's going to stop for the week, and now I am going to put a couple of hours in on the AMTronic before we close up shop for the week. But it's a big one. Very well, I am working on the AMTronic, and I'm working on Windows today, and I want to go ahead and get these guys in now. I have done the canopy for the main cockpit, and it's kind of strange that this is the only part that's going to remain clear, and I've made masks for those, but that they bothered to make those bottom wings also out of the clear material when they get painted over anyway is kind of strange. The whole thing will lift up like this. One might even wonder why they did that, other than the fact that it's neat looking and futuristic. So what I've got is, you've seen the nice wood grain on the panel. I've got to put these side windows in and then mask over them. Putting the windows in will actually give me a lot of structural rigidity to the sides and make it easier to deal with, and it's easier to put those windows in now than it would be once the, the whole body's put together. But if I'm going to mask and protect them, then they should be fine. So let's get those windows glued in. Okay, I've got the side windows in, and I'm using canopy glue, which is going to take forever and a day to dry. So I'm just kind of have them taped in place and let that sit. This is probably all I'll get done on this week, and I can pick that up on Monday. And what I want to do now, though, is take care of this canopy and mask these bits so that I can paint the rest of it. Let's do that. And that's where it looks like we're going to draw close to another busy week. Starting 2 new projects, the large and the very large and the very small, both kind of out of my comfort range. one being a car, the other one being a real space item. But it's as exasperating as it has been, and this rocket from Dragon, this Saturn V, is not for the faint of heart. You're kind of used to, when you work with garage kits, you're kind of used to the instructions kind of being loosey-goosey, and you kind of have to figure things out. When it's a professionally made kit, you really deserve better instructions than Dragon is providing with these, with this Saturn V. A lot of stuff, a lot of brain work I shouldn't have had to have done, but glad to have done it anyway, because now I know. And this car, once I keyed into a design scheme for it, it started to go very well. I was kind of floundering at the beginning, wondering what color is this, what color is that. But once I decided to emulate the bridge of the Enterprise D, I was back in familiar territory, and you get the nice little. Those even look like the navigation and con chairs. So there. But it's been a fun week, but like I said, it's been an exasperating week. So until next time, when we'll get down to more of the nitty-gritty of the actual inner workings, the guts of the Saturn V, and starting to put the body together on the AMTronic. We'll be doing that next week. So until then, be good to each other, and see you next time.